Hi everyone, it's day 8 of the Vendée Globe. And joining me today is a lady who really needs no introduction. It's 6 times round the world sailor and former competitor of the Vendée Globe, Dee Caffari. Welcome,
Hello,
Dee. I imagine,
thank
like
you.
everybody else, you've been glued to the tracker.
Oh, my productivity for the last 8 days has just gone down massively because it's just all consuming. I can't believe it's only 8 days. It feels like it's already been 4 weeks worth of activity. So it's been absolutely obsessive for me. I've loved every minute of it.
And tell me, are you a secret competitor of the virtual game?
I have actually shied away from that, even though I was encouraging everybody to go and do it. But it's really good to seeing your updates actually of where how many people, even previous competitors, are doing the Vendée like yourself, are back in on that virtual game. And the fact that you can do it real time with the sailors as well, I think, is a real added incentive for people to see how they fare as an armchair sailor.
Give us a sense of what it is like going into the doldrums. What are the dangers? How difficult is it really?
Well, when people explain the doldrums, they say this patch of no wind, but actually it's anything but that because you can have all the extremes. You go from nothing to 40 knots in a cloud, and it takes you by surprise. So the energy you use up crossing the doldrums is looking at these clouds, looking at the activity, making sure you're on the right side of the cloud so that you can benefit from any wind and not get caught. And the doldrums could be one good cloud for somebody and one bad cloud for somebody else, and it can cost you miles. And I think that's the kind of the bit that exhausts you going through the doldrums. Yes, it's nice weather. Yes, you get a chance to have a shower, but obviously, honestly, sometimes it's too hot and still, and then thunder and lightning, and it's almost quite scary. And I think we look at satellite pictures to see the activity, but we know that although it may look simple, it looks like there's breeze, there will be cloud activity and cells out there that they're going to have to identify. And in the middle of the night, that gets a bit more tricky to see the wind coming. So knowing when to shorten sail and kind of make sure you're the right side of a shift is really important. And that's what gets the sailors tired out there.
And is there particular techniques that you look for in terms of the clouds themselves? I remember, one crossing where Paul Larson and I we had this huge squall that we just basically hung on to every bit of sail we had up and just sailed about 25 miles and popped out the other side. But is there a strategy to the clouds that you use?
I think with experience, you start to recognize those clouds that are sucking all the wind away and those clouds that are blowing it out. And actually, that experience also gives you that confidence, as you say, to just hang on and take the train. And you could think, oh, this is really windy, I need to shorten sail. But you could also say, this isn't lasting very long. Maybe I'll just bear away a little bit and go where it takes me and try and take advantage of any puff it's giving you, any acceleration and
Yeah.
advantageous movement forwards. I think that's the secret is kind of not to be too afraid. Nothing ever lasts for that long, and if you get lucky, you can have some good distance in there.
Yeah, yeah. So very different to the back markers at the moment, who seem to be caught in this sort of void just post storm theta, where there is just nothing. And how do you think they're feeling watching the fleet sail away?
Oh, it must be heartbreaking. I mean, they must feel like they're in the doldrums already, the worst possible case of scenario of the doldrums. But they've just probably got clear skies, very little wind, can't make any progress. And I actually find those conditions the more frustrating. It's actually easier when you've got something to deal with, but working really hard and getting nowhere is painful. And as you say, all the time they're watching the tracker and the position reports and seeing the rest of the fleet sail away. And they still think that they've still got the doldrums to come. So potentially they're going to be hit with a double whammy by the time they get there. So it must be heartbreaking for them.
Yeah, that's a very very difficult. Particularly if some of the slow boats have been having a phenomenal race to date. Just it's really harsh to be caught up. Some of the foilers have managed to close in and catch Alex, particularly Linked Out, who did a 500-mile day yesterday. How hard do you think they're pushing too hard to catch him?
Well, I think Thomas Ruant's been quite interesting to watch as his speed's been building, and especially now he needs to capitalise because Alex is going to slow down as he gets to the more unstable breeze in the transition. And Thomas really needs to keep pushing while he's got the good pressure to close that gap, because he's looking ahead. He doesn't want to let Alex get out the other side and get away from him, because in the South Atlantic, it's all about trying to hook into a potential low pressure coming off Brazil that's going to accelerate them into the Southern Ocean. And if he wants to be competitive with Alex, he needs to try and catch up so he's in the same pressure, same weather system. Otherwise, he'll be left behind and it's even harder work. So I think in his mind, he's got confidence with his boat, having had the first week's activities. He's in a good place, the weather's warmer, and it's a kind of do or die. He's got to take advantage while he can.
Yeah, yeah. Now, following yesterday's interview with Mark Turner, we talked quite a bit about the rules that he was responsible for bringing into the Volvo Ocean Race, really to encourage more women sailors to be part of the teams. We were just chatting about the impact of that, and I just wondered what you thought in terms of the impact that has had in the last few years, and in particular with the Vendée and so many women sailors taking part.
Well, we look back at 2016, where for the first time since women first started sailing the race, there weren't any, and we were like, where's everybody gone? And here we are celebrating in 2020 6 sailors that are good sailors as well, with going to put good projects around the world. So I think it's a really nice move forwards, and I think it's very difficult for young sailors and women. So I think we can't just separate it by gender, but to get opportunities to sail with more experienced, good sailors. And so when something like the Volvo Ocean Race brought in that rule that kind of mandated a female on the boat, or encouraged it to happen, incentivized the rule, it gave a massive opportunity for sailors to learn from experienced sailors like Val Becking and Rob Greenhalgh, all these amazing sailors, and there they were on the same boats as them, learning from them. And also these guys then saw the development of the girls, so therefore they have more confidence to sail with girls in the future. So it's kind of a snowball effect. Yeah. So I just really think it's made a huge difference, and hopefully produced more inspirational role models for the younger generations to look up to and think, oh, I want to go and do that. That looks amazing.
Yeah, certainly is. Now in this race, we got, as you mentioned, 6 incredible females. 3 of them are Brits. You've got to know, I think, all of them. How do they compare? What are do they have different attributes, different skills?
Well, I think we could all say they're pretty resilient and dedicated and focused. Otherwise, they wouldn't have even got to the start line. And I think we all know that's what makes the project. The hardest bit is getting to the start line. The race is almost the enjoyable bit. But I think, they each have their little characteristics. And Sam, as an engineer, is quite a technical sailor. And she's worked really hard on knowing the parameters of her boat and how to get the best out of herself and her boat. She knows how she sails, and she's adapted the boat for that. And she's got a great project, potential. That's a second Brit on the podium, if we have her and Alex. That's what I said on the commentary. If I led by my heart, I'd love to see 2 Brits on the podium. And then we've got different kind of scales in the financial side of projects where we talk about Pip and Miranda. And I've sailed with Sam and Miranda's a real natural sailor. She looks a lot of the weather, and, strategically, she'll place her boat really well.
Very experienced.
Really experienced, and has done a lot of sailing in a lot of different types of boats with a lot of projects. And she will definitely get round. And I think all 3 of them also, well, all of them, but the 3 Brits that are communicating, they genuinely love being out on the water, and that's coming across clear in the communications.
Yeah.
So Miranda comes from huge amounts of experience and definitely knows what she's letting herself in for. And Pip, on the other hand, has had this dream and this vision and is following it, and this dream's coming true. Will be going down into the Southern Ocean for the very first time. But she's kind of outsailing her boat. She's doing a great performance, and I think she's surprising herself. But she's like a sponge, absorbing all the time, learning all the time. And I think we've really seen her step up to this big project that she's now got going on. It's great.
Yeah. In some ways, she really reminds me of Sam in 2008. And she's got good technical knowledge. She's got a good breadth of experience, and I think she is outsailing that boat. So brilliant to see that. If we wind back the clock to 2001, a very young Ellen MacArthur finished second in the Vendée Globe. how do you think they compare to her? I mean, Ellen was obviously, pretty exceptional lady, um, but in terms of her sort of mental strength, how do you think they all compare?
Well, I think, Ellen's timing was just perfect. And, she really showed that it doesn't matter about your size and physique, you can pack a punch, and it's being clever with how you do it. She surrounded herself with some exceptional people that brought the best out of her development and produced the best project. And I think that's a sign that the others have followed as well, putting people around them that they can trust and rely on and feel help them move forwards. But I think there's that element of, everybody that's out there. If you do the Vendée Globe, you're pretty resilient, you're pretty determined, and you're pretty focused. Most people don't go around the world on their own for a little holiday. It's a little too extreme for that. So I think, Ellen really set the benchmark, and we probably see Sam as the closest campaign to come and deliver the result like that. But for Ellen, if we think back to that time, to come out at that age with that experience and produce that kind of result in your first Vendée Globe is exceptional. And I haven't seen anybody else that's produced that, and it's I think that's something that we all kind of aspire to be half as good as. It was exceptional, and it was a great team effort, and it
Yeah.
produced the results. So I think everybody's relying on the team around them, and they all just want to push as hard as they can. And you surprise yourself. You always come back and think, oh, I could have done that better, and I could have done that better. And I think that's probably why we keep going back out there.
Right, let's have a quick look at the tracker in the last 24 hours, and then we'll have a look at the forecast and see what these guys and girls are about to get themselves into as they get into the doldrums. So this was the position at lunchtime yesterday, and I'll just sort of walk it forward. Perhaps just give us your reflections as you're watching it go down there.
Well, it's really interesting because they were forced so far west as a fleet with the depressions that they had to get the right side of them, that they literally have been heading south now for hundreds of miles. And in previous editions, we will have seen people negotiate the Canaries, negotiate the Cape Verdes, and deal with acceleration zones. And as they're in the trades, they would have all tried to kind of balance the getting west with getting south, and they would have been consistently jibing along the trade winds. But here, pretty much, it's been one jibe, head south, and just keep going. And now they're just kind of looking at the satellite pictures, I would imagine, and just trying to look at the cloud activity and just line themselves up for what they hope will be to keep going south. We have to remember that this doldrums line, although we see the line of the fatter area on the eastern side and it gets thinner towards the west, it actually does float north and south by a few degrees as well. So when Alex on his interviews talks about, oh, well, we all know what the doldrums can do and you can get trapped in there, it's that thought of if you get into the doldrums and you think you're through, sometimes it starts to move south with you and you don't quite get released from its grasp. So you do that whole thing of, well, I think the wind's gone forwards on me. I think I'm through, but I'm not too sure. And you hesitantly just keep sailing south just to kind of give you that confidence that you're definitely through before you can then maybe crack sheets if you can make the corner at Recife.
Well, this is the in fact Predict Wind have just released the UK Met Office as a model, which is fantastic. So we now can compare the UK Met Office forecast with ECMWF and the GFS. But I'll just kind of run it through over the next sort of 24 hours. It looks like the trades are strengthening, if anything. And this gap between the doldrums is very is very small. And if we have a quick look at the rain map, what are you seeing there in terms of those little dots?
So you get a few cells of activity where the darker red dots are, probably a bit of thunder and lightning, a lot of rain squalls there. So they're the cloud cells that you want to try and use to your advantage. As you said, keep the sail up and try and grab 25 miles if it gives it to you. But they're the things that you're kind of looking for. So you want some activity, otherwise it's a slow progress. But you don't want to get caught behind one of these clouds because one side will be sucking up the wind and blowing out the other side, and if you get the wrong side, that's when you get stuck in your little void and float around while the person next to you sails on. So it's quite critical that you keep your wits about you, have a look at the infrared there and try and line yourself up accordingly. I
Yeah,
would say with that North Atlantic, with the trades establishing, with the news today that Jeremy Bay is leaving, his mindset now has to be so different from being the race favourite to win, that he must have confidence that the North Atlantic is a bit better than when he set out 8 days ago.
yeah. I mean, it's incredible. It looks like some of the big multi hulls will be setting off on their attempts as well. So a few days ago, we were looking at the doldrums, and it seemed to be quite far north. It seems to have drifted a bit further south, and certainly become a little easier to get through. It's been really interesting just how variable it can be, even on a day-to-day basis. Um, so let's have a quick look at the routing then, and this is just from lunchtime today, taking us through sort of the next 2 or 3 days across the doldrums there, and then what's happening here as we get into the sort of post the equator, into the southern hemisphere. What are we looking for?
Well, once we've nailed these clouds and the doldrums and we've toasted Neptune as we cross the equator, you've got the wind that's circulating around the St. Helena High, and it takes various shapes and moves in rotation down in that South Atlantic. So the wind will go forwards on you, and you'll feel like you're upwind sailing for a little bit. And you don't want to crack sheets too quickly, because Recife is quite a big lump and you want to be clear of that. And your routing now is looking ahead to trying to see if there's any depressions coming off from Brazil that's going to be the highway into the south, which kind of gives you that little extra propulsion down south, gives you a nice weather system to follow, and it makes that South Atlantic so much easier. So the guys will be looking for that weather forecast and to see if any of those systems are setting up in the kind of Salvador, Rio type area, so that they can jump onto and go. If there isn't, there could be some really messy weather to check there. So they don't want to cut the corner too much. They'll get trapped in lighter winds. And I remember my Vendée Globe in 2008, when Michel Desjoyaux went back to repair and then started after everybody else. He literally went round the outside of everybody, down the Brazilian coast, outside, round the bottom, and overtook everyone and won.
Yeah, he seemed to have a habit of finding some additional horsepower in that whole race when I followed it, and he just always seemed to be going quicker, a knot or two quicker than anybody else in the fleet, and you think, how on earth is he doing that? So I was going to have a very quick look at the virtual game, just to check that Mike Golding's still behind me. The Vincent Roux and I crossed jibes yesterday, but yeah, it's funny enough. Now, finally, the real boats have overtaken the virtual boats. But yeah, just remarkable. 500,000 or so players playing this game.
I think it's fabulous to bring sailing to so many people. Not only are we following the race and what all the 33 sailors are up to at different times, but now everybody's kind of all immersed in it. There's a real widespread on this virtual game from east to west. So some people will be pleased with themselves, and other people will be a bit frustrated, I would guess.
I was just trying to select. So the guy furthest in the west, a guy called Matt Johnson, he was the guy who won the virtual Vendée Globe 4 years ago. So
he does know what he's doing.
Yeah, certainly does. In fact, he followed my routing exactly. I thought our virtual regatta, I'm going to go a slightly shorter distance, and whilst on paper he's sort of 50, 60 thousandths, he's clearly up in the front run here, and in the right position. So yeah, I think he does know what he's doing. I think I might follow him. So that's been brilliant, Dee. Thanks as ever for joining us. You've got some exciting things going on with your Olympic training, and really looking forward to seeing how that pans out next year, when it starts to the ante starts to rise. What have you got coming up over the winter? Anything outside of lockdown?
Well, what I have learned is you can sail in this country in the cold. So normally I try and choose somewhere else to sail when it's a bit warmer. But no, I'm getting used to some cold weather sailing, and fortunately, double-handed sailing's been okay during lockdown. It's been permitted, so yeah, we've been out there most weekends, and there's still a couple more weekends that we've got planned. So I've got the extra layers, the mid layers have come out as well, and see if I can last till the end of the month, and then we've got to try and find the funding to make it all happen next year. Of course, that's always part of the game.
Yeah.
But I'm really enjoying just doing something else and actually having the opportunity to get out on the water, because otherwise this year would have been a bit void of sailing opportunities. So I'm immersing myself in the Vendée Globe and following it and getting out on the water as much as I can.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, good luck. We're all rooting for you. It's going to be it's going to be a really interesting year with the Olympics, hopefully happening. A lot of sailors
Fingers
have been out
crossed.
training and preparing themselves for that, and of course, if the double-handed gets the green light, there's going to be some real excitement to watch for that going forward. So great to see you. Look forward to chatting to you again. Hopefully on this show in a perhaps a week or so's time. We'll catch up with you again. In the meantime, good luck and see you soon.
Thank you. Keep up the good work. Loving it.
Cheers. Thanks, Dee. Bye-bye. So that's it. Great to catch up with Dee, and it's fantastic to see Alex leading into the doldrums. He crossed the equator first 4 years ago, so the signs are looking good. I really feel for some of the Brits who got stuck in that high pressure system and don't seem to be able to escape it. But hopefully over the next few days they'll get into the trades and enjoy really what this Vendée has to offer. Tomorrow we're back on again, and on Thursday we've got Mervyn Owen joining us from San Francisco. Mervyn was the designer of Kingfisher and went on and designed several of Mike Golding's Mocha 60s as well. So he's going to be chomping at the bit to tell us about the designs and how these foiling boats and non-foiling boats are going to get on in the South Atlantic. Look forward to seeing you all. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.